If, after using the jump, it becomes apparent that the listener hasn't understood you, you'll have to repeat the phrase that you've said again. At such times, rather than using the jump again, it's better to switch over to orchestral speech to repeat the phrase. In this slideshow, I discuss how the jump can be combined with orchestral speech and with other fluency shaping techniques at times when listeners fail to understand you. In everyday life, when speaking, it's not really practical to have to continually pay attention to how your words are coming out. Normally, speakers focus their energy on what they want to say and simply have faith that it'll come out appropriately. So similarly, when you speak, in most situations of everyday life, you can do the same. Just focus on what you want to say and don't worry about how it'll come out. There's no need to use any fluency enhancing technique at all unless you really have to. Only when you actually find yourself getting stuck is it then appropriate to use the jump to get going again. Most of the time, if you use the jump in this way, it'll work fine, inasmuch as it'll get you going again, and the listener will understand you. And as long as the listener has understood you, just carry on, even if what you say didn't come out quite as well, or as smoothly as you had hoped. When you get to the end of a phrase, if it's apparent that the listener hasn't understood you, this is quite irrespective of whether or not you've stammered, you'll need to go back and repeat some or all of that phrase. So go back to a suitable point. Exactly how far you go back will vary depending on how long the phrase is and how long the words are. But if possible, go back far enough to establish a bit of a rhythm, so that you can establish a bit of a rhythm in advance of the problem word. Then, repeat the phrase using orchestral speech. As far as possible, when repeating it, use exactly the same words as you did the first time round, because you've already formulated and practiced these words once, so this saves you from having to engage in any additional reformulating. Also, decide on the exact rhythm that you want to use to say the phrase. Say the phrase exactly as you've planned, just as you would as if it was the line of a song. And give the highest priority to maintaining the intended forward flow. Even if some of the words come out wrong, keep going to the end of the phrase. It's useful to practice integrating the jump with orchestral speech, so here's an exercise you can try out. First of all, you'll have to find someone who can act as a conversation partner and explain to them that you're going to read something out of a book and also engage them in some conversation about it. Tell them to occasionally interrupt you while you're speaking. They could say something like, "Sorry, I missed that. Could you repeat it?" And these interruptions can be in response to real misunderstandings or to pretend ones. It doesn't matter which. However, it is important that their interruption should not be prompted by your stammering, unless your stammering is what causes them to misunderstand you. Whenever the conversation partner asks you to repeat something, do so using orchestral speech. And when using orchestral speech, make sure that you stick to the same words that you said the first time round, and make sure that you maintain an appropriate speech rate. Be as strict with your timing as you would be if you were singing or playing in an orchestra. Out of all of the available fluency shaping methods, orchestral speech is the most natural sounding. So when the jump doesn't work, in other words when it fails to get a message across to the listener, and indeed whenever someone has difficulty understanding something that you've said, we would normally advocate repeating it using orchestral speech. However, in situations that are particularly difficult, Other fluency shaping approaches, such as syllable time speech or prolonged speech, can actually be somewhat easier to employ than orchestral speech, and may be more reliable in ensuring fluency. The drawback with these other fluency shaping methods is that the speech that results from them is less natural sounding than that which results from orchestral speech.